Hi, I'm Andrew Shovlin. I'm Trackside Engineering Director and I'm here to answer your questions about the Austrian Grand Prix. The soft tyre performed more or less as expected. It was good for a range of about 25 laps or so. That was what we had before the race, and that was what we saw on Sunday. And it was surviving quite well in the hot conditions. The reason that we started both our cars on the medium tyre was that it just gave you a lot more range. It could go well beyond half distance in the race. That would give us some flexibility. We weren't looking particularly strong, so we weren't banking on starting this race from the front row, and we thought that that flexibility would pay dividends around the stop. It also meant that the final stint of the race on the hard tyre wouldn't be so difficult. The only downside with starting on the medium for us was really the start line performance. It's a bit worse, but not by so much as a car's length. But those were the main reasons that we took the decision to go that way for the race start. Why did we have problems with overheating? Well, simple question. It's actually quite a big answer, but fundamentally, the car doesn't have big enough radiators, and that's something that we were a bit optimistic with how much we could get out of the cooling system. It's under-delivered to what we hoped we could achieve, and it's meant that we're carrying this issue where in the very hot races we will be struggling to keep everything cool enough, principally to keep the power unit cool enough that we don't do any damage to it. You can increase the amount of cooling you get out of the car by opening up the bodywork exits. And in Austria, it was 35 degrees. That actually put us at the upper end of what we can achieve just by opening the car up. So we were on limit. When you get to that point, you're really limited in your options. You can start to use lift and coast, which is where the drivers get towards the end of the straight and they back off the throttle. They then brake a bit later, and you have a period where the car is just coasting into the corner, the engine's not doing work, and you can lose a fair bit of temperature like that. But as you saw in the race, we were having to ask our drivers to increase that to around 400 metres a lap, and that was why they were so compromised on performance. You can also turn the engine down a bit, then it will generate less heat, but you've got less power, you're slower on the straights. So it was definitely a significant limitation in Austria. We are working on systems, we were working on them before Austria to try and improve this problem, and we should be in a better position, but it all really goes down to the fundamental design of the car, where in the push for very, very tight packaging, we have ended up being undercooled overall. What happened with Lewis's wing? Well, he was running on the curb at turn 10 and the flap adjuster broke. So that's the thing that we use to change the angle of the flaps on the left and right side of the wing. That changes how much downforce it produces. And this is one of the main tools the drivers and the engineers use to balance the car. They're trying to put more load on the front. When it broke on that curb, it drops down. And it only drops by a few degrees, but it means that he's got understeer then in all those fast corners. Now, there were two things we were talking about. One, do we come in and we go to the maximum angle we can achieve on the other side to improve that balance, or do we change the nose? Well, we were looking at the readings we were getting on that wing, trying to understand if there was the range to do it just by adding some more wing on the other side of the car, and it was quite clear that wouldn't be enough. So that was when we had to then take the pit stop. It's about an additional 8 seconds, but overall that would have been quicker for the race as a whole because he would have otherwise been slower by at least half a second a lap. So Pitstop Practice, we do that really every day of the race weekend, and the front wings will normally do a couple of practice front wing changes in each Pitstop Practice. It's not something that we actually have to often do during the races. We probably only do 1 or 2 a year in anger, but they're difficult things to get on and off. They're quite heavy, they're very big now as well, and you're having to coordinate that around the wheel changes that are going on. But we make sure the guys are all well versed in doing it so that when we need to do one, as we did on Sunday, we know how long it takes and we know that we can do it reliably. The fastest lap we were watching from quite some time away. We could see Vettel closing on Lewis. We knew that it was a significant risk that we were going to get passed on track. And we also knew that it would be very, very near the end of the race where this happens. Now, the question here is, should we have accepted that Vettel was going to overtake us, come in for the stop anyway, gone for fastest lap, get the extra point. Well, if we knew we were going to lose the place, then that's of course the right thing to do. But Lewis would have thought he could battle with Vettel. We could see he was quick, but you never know how well you can defend. You never know what's going to happen. And that was really the reason we didn't want to just give up on that position. Unfortunately, when Sebastian actually overtook Lewis, there wasn't enough time for us to come in, get the tyres, get out and actually do a flying lap. We could have just done the out lap and that wouldn't have counted for anything. So it was a point that we lost, but it wasn't our biggest problem of the day. But it is something that we do think about at the time. Moving forward from a difficult race, well, we're not sat here feeling sad and sorry for ourselves. We've got a very good car and a car that can be competitive at almost all of the circuits. But there's a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of projects looking at this particular issue with the cooling, how we can improve that. And that work started well before the race weekend in Austria. And there's a lot of people here busy with that, and we will get on top of that and make progress. It's also a race where we still scored decent points. Our closest rival in the championship, Ferrari, we only dropped 5 points to them. We still got a podium with Valtteri, but we know that we can do better, and perhaps our biggest regret was that it was a great race. We didn't let our drivers race in it. They were just having to look after the temperatures of the power unit. And where we do probably feel a little bit sad is that we just wanted to be part of it, fighting at the front, and this was a Sunday that we couldn't do that. Thank you very much for all of your questions. We're going to be back in 2 weeks' time answering questions from the British Grand Prix.